We are back with another video on Omniman, and this time we have something special for people who are not afraid of spoilers. You know where this is going, right? Yes, straight to the comics. This is everything you need to know about Omniman, aka Nolan Grayson. I'm gonna be telling you about his whole story, and you'll be shocked. We promise, don't worry, you'll be shocked. If you're someone who does not want any spoilers and still want to know about Omniman, then please check out our Omniman playlist. You'll find everything about him without any spoilers. Aren't I nice? Let's get started. The story begins with the Great Purge. Yeah, so this is the Viltrumites removing the weak from the Viltrum society. It was called the Great Purge, and shortly after this purge, Nolan came into the world of Viltrum, this far-off planet. Viltrum is the home to these superpowered beings called Viltrumites, and they're all about taking over everything they can get their hands on all the time. Nolan didn't have an easy start, actually. He lost people when he was young, and from day one, he was fed the whole Viltrumite spiel about dominating the universe. That's why we see him the way he is in the series. This domination thing, it's like their creed, their motto, their ethos, or something. To snatch up worlds, species, and civilization, and make them a part of their own Viltrumite empire. So, Nolan grows up and decides to join the Viltrumite army. How patriotic, and he's good, like really good. He climbs up the ranks super fast thanks to years of kicking butt in wars and taking over places. People start calling him the Great Nolan. He's their golden boy, a big deal among his own kind. But here's the twist, the Viltrumite empire gets so freaking huge, they're stretched thin, trying to control it all. So they start thinking about how to take over new places instead of a full frontal invasion. They pick their top-notch officers like Nolan to soften up planets before they swoop in for the takeover. That's why Nolan was sent to Earth. It was a sneaky plan to weaken these planets just enough to make them easy to snatch up without a big fuss. Smart move, but definitely evil. Nolan got sent to Earth and decided to make it his new home. He used his real name, Nolan Grayson, and got a job as a writer to blend in, but secretly, he was a superhero in disguise called Omniman. He played hero undercover, teaming up with the big shots in the superhero scene, like the OG Guardians of the Globe and the Global Defense Agency. And then he fought for a human lady named Debbie, saved her when he was doing his own hero thing, and then bam, they got hitched and then fell in love, and they had this kid named Mark, who had a mix of human and Viltrumite blood, making him a real powerhouse. Now, Nolan wasn't so keen on telling the truth to Mark about his Viltrumite roots. Instead, he spun this tale about being some part of a do-gooder committee and left Viltrum to help out Earth. That is not the most honest move, but hey, parents do what they gotta do, right? Nolan made friends with folks like Cecil Stedman and Art Rosenbaum, that costume guy, kinda building his own little support crew. Even though he didn't officially join any superhero teams, he agreed to be the go-to guy when things got real bad. Like, he'd swoop in to help out as the secret weapon. Oh, and this guy, Alan from the Coalition of Planets, gosh, I hate his name. He keeps poking around, checking Earth's strength, and every time he tries to size us up, Nolan showed him who's boss, yeah, baby! And always came out on top in their little, meetings. So one thing led to another, you know the whole story, right? Let's give a quick recap. Mark grew young, Nolan killed the Guardians, Mark found out, Mark fought his father and got his ass kicked. Then Omniman felt bad, boo-hoo, left the planet and went to Thraxa. Mark was brought to Thraxa and Viltrumites came there. Mark and Nolan fought side by side and it ended badly for them. Omniman got his spine shattered, General Craig came and gave Marky an ultimatum. And Omniman was taken away to be executed. Woo! Yeah! Let's continue the story after that. Mark had to split and unfortunately, he was left with no option other than to leave his dad stuck as a prisoner with the Viltrumites. On his way home, Mark brought his half-brother back to Earth. Right before Omniman got locked up, he dropped a cryptic line to his son, "Read my books." Back on Earth, Mark tried to school his half-brother on flying while dropping the bomb that everyone on Earth despised Omniman, but the bro wasn't buying it. Yeah! As Omniman's back was getting better, he ended up bunking with some alien prisoner guy in jail. Nolan, feeling kinda down, spilled the beans about missing his wife to this guy, and then boom! He tries to break out, but Craig the party pooper ruins it all, darn it. Craig drops the bomb that Nolan's perfectly healthy, but is now on death row. Youch! That's a bummer. Craig doesn't hold back. He started fighting Nolan. It took Craig and two other Viltrumites to drag Nolan back to his cell, and on the way he spots Alan, and he's like, "What's he doing here?" Turns out they start this mind-chatting thing, and Alan promises another conversation with Nolan. They get talking about the Coalition of Planets, Mark's job in a big interstellar squabble, and Alan's big plan to break Nolan out of prison. At first Nolan's like, this is not a good plan, but then Alan shares his feelings about Talia, and how Viltrumite rules mess up everything. Nolan spills about his wife and how his feelings for her don't fit the Viltrumite rulebook. Then let's fast forward. Alan cooks up an escape plan with Omniman. When the day of Omniman's supposed execution rolls around, Alan busts out, bringing along Battle Beast and freeing Omniman. Yeah, Battle Beast was there too. They take down the Viltrumite execution squad in one epic jailbreak. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. Nolan spills the beans to Alan about the whole backstory of the Viltrum Empire, how they got so darn strong and basically they're unbeatable. And he's got some serious news. Earth might just become a baby-making factory for these Viltrumites. Yeah, that's messed up, isn't it? So, Alan's all charged up after this talk and they rush off to Talescria. But things get wild loud when Nolan crashes into Alan's room while he's having a moment with Talia. She tries to zap Nolan, but it's like shooting peas at a brick wall. It's like, useless. It's kind of funny. Next day, they're on their way to see Thetis, the leader of the Coalition of Planets. Nolan spills more beans about these Viltrumite guys to Thetis, who drops a bombshell. He's a rebel Viltrumite too, surprise! Whoa! Now he wants Nolan and Alan to do some sneaky spy stuff, cause there's a mole in the Coalition, and Thetis is like, you guys only report to me, and off they go. So they're on a space hunt for his weapon belonging to Space Racer. Nolan had fought this guy in the past hundreds of years ago, and he was dead. Like he was dead. Nolan and Alan find the weapon, but guess what? Space Racer's alive and kicking! Haha! And there's a bit of a tussle, but they talk Space Racer into joining their gang. They just give them more missions than a video game. Get this Ragnar thing, some Klax's planets, and rally some pals for help. Some missions rock, others a big time flop, and after these roller coaster missions, Nolan's crashing at Alan's place, annoyed by their mushy moments. They spill some major secrets to Nolan, like how he cooked up the Scourge virus. This virus had already killed 99% of the Viltrumites of the past. Turns out he got an even stronger version and won't think twice about using it if they're losing this epic war. Coming back to the Viltrumite War, Thetis sent Nolan and Alan to Earth to rally some help for the big Viltrumite War. When they met Mark, they were all like, hey, join us in the fight, but then Nolan had to be all specific and ask Mark not to bring Oliver along. Next up, Alan and Nolan swing by a guy named Tech Jacket's place in space and recruited him. Nolan then went to see his wife and did the whole I'm sorry thing, but Debbie was like, no! So he goes to Oliver and invites him to join the squad in Talescria, which Oliver agrees to. And here comes the drama. Ambush time, baby! Conquest, Lucan, and some unnamed Viltrumite show up out of nowhere. Conquest is like the second most powerful Viltrumite. The most powerful is Thrag. By most powerful, we mean Omniman is nothing compared to him. Yeah, so getting back to the story. Conquest goes for Nolan, Lucan and Oliver start scrapping, and Nolan jumps in to chokehold Lucan. The Viltrumites bring a whole army of conquered aliens, and Oliver barely makes it out alive to a nearby planet. Nolan rushes to find Mark and Conquest and sees a gruesome scene. Conquest's dead. Mark's in a really bad state. So Nolan plays doctor for Mark and deals with Conquest's body, grossing out Oliver. And during Mark's recovery, he tries to bond with Oliver. When Mark finally gets better, Nolan drops a bombshell. What's with all the bombshells? There's a lot of them. Mark actually killed Conquest. I know, right? Anyways, they all gear up and head back to battle, aiming to help out Talescria. And then stuff goes down. Anissa gets in a scuffle with Nolan, Thetis confronts a traitor, and they find out about Viltrum's plans. The day after that, Thetis gets everyone ready for the final showdown at Viltrum. It's chaotic. Thetis gets ambushed, Battle Beast enters the scene, it's an all-out war. Space Racer and the Ragnars join the brawl. Anissa tries to take out Nolan, but he fights back, while Thetis grabs Mark for a plan. Nolan and Mark charge in, blowing up Viltrum, but Nolan gets caught by the Viltrumites. Oh no! Luckily, he gets freed from a shockwave and teams up with Thetis, but things turn grim. Thetis gets decapitated by Thrag. Thrag, the most powerful Viltrumite. Nolan's super shook, but gets ready to fight alongside Alan against the remaining Viltrumites. Phew, that's a long story. Oh no, there's more! Here we go! Thrag attacks Mark hard until Nolan steps in. Thrag spills about Thetis offing the ruler of Viltrum, and Nolan's like, man, they were just tyrants. But Thrag goes on a rampage, headbutting Nolan, tossing Battle Beast, and chasing after Nolan and Mark. He takes out Nolan, but surprisingly lets him live, and then they bolt from Viltrum. Interesting. Later, Nolan's healing finds Oliver stuck in stasis, and Alan says no Viltrumite action in Coalition Galaxy. Mark's wary, thinking the Viltrumites might have sneaky plans, maybe for Earth. They all head back to Earth. Tech Jacket, Nolan, and Mark. Thrag shows up again. Mark wants a fight, but Thrag wants to talk truce. He suggests Viltrumites rule Earth. Mark's not thrilled, but Thrag paints a picture of Viltrumite Earth babies and a peaceful takeover. Mark caves, seeing the nightmare if he refuses. Thrag leaves and ends the Viltrumite War. Oh boy. Nolan heads home and he visits Debbie. They have a little chit-chat. She's a mess. Nolan's real, admitting things can go back after hiding some stuff from her. Nolan's visit to the Pentagon turns into a realization that he can't stick around on Earth for too long. He spills the bean to Mark and Eve about his plan to patch up things with Debbie by going to Talescria. During their trip, there are some pretty personal moments between them. Once on Talescria, Nolan spots Oliver doing his superhero thing and they all head to find Debbie. Alan, worried about Coalition pressure to wipe out the Viltrumites, wants to have a chat with Nolan. He eventually guides Nolan, Debbie, and Oliver to a new place, but later he calls them up with a mind-blowing announcement. Alan drops a bombshell about releasing a virus to wipe out the Viltrumites on Earth. Nolan's rage bursts out, leading to a face-off between them. Nolan calls Alan out, saying it's akin to what the Viltrumites did to Unapa. Alan defends his plan, claiming it's the only way to prevent a similar tragedy from repeating itself. Their scuffle turns intense until Oliver steps in, delivering a decisive blow to Alan. Things escalate quickly when Coalition military shows up. Oliver surprisingly stands by Alan's side, shocking Nolan, who believes in a more optimistic view of changing Viltrumite ways. Nolan clashes with Oliver, but his resolve weakens, unable to hurt Oliver as he did Mark. Alan intervenes and finds it a chaotic twist. Debbie mistakes Nolan's actions and accuses him of trying to take control. The Coalition military swoops in and arrests Nolan. Thankfully, Alan realizes his mistake and releases Nolan, dispatching him back to Earth to handle the Viltrumite situation. In Earth, Cecil confronts Nolan, deciding he needs punishment for his fight with his son. Nolan gets exiled to the Guardian's moon base and asked to watch a Viltrumite warship. After Cecil leaves, Nolan and Debbie gear up for a private moment, but get interrupted when Thrag attacks, aiming to kill Nolan. In the midst of the chaos, Nolan rescues Debbie from a nearby space launch and faces off against Thrag. Nolan insists he meant no harm, but Thrag reveals Nolan's true lineage as the son of Lord Argal, the former Viltrumite Emperor. Thrag wants Nolan dead for being a traitor, despite Nolan's disinterest in ruling. Their clash takes a turn when Craig, Thula, Lucan, and Anissa intervene, learning about Nolan's heritage and turning against Thrag. Despite their attempts to finish Thrag off, Nolan pleads for mercy, and they bow to him, acknowledging him as their new emperor. Whoa! Nolan, now in charge, addresses the Viltrumites, urging them to embrace change after their time on Earth. After a brief speech, he tends to heal and visit Thrag in captivity. Thrag suggests Nolan end him, but Nolan refuses, opting for a new way. After healing, Nolan brings Thrag to face Viltrumite justice, exiling him. Yeah! In a new timeline, Nolan becomes Omniman again. Tension builds at dinner when Mark, questioning Nolan's intentions for Earth. An angry confrontation leads to a fight. Mark tricks Nolan into revealing his plan to the Guardians. Nolan's captured and a scuffle ensues involving the Immortal and Cecil. Nolan apologizes, expressing regret, and Alan seeks Nolan's help against the Viltrumites, prompting Nolan to bid farewell to his wife and depart with Alan. So my good gobberjeebers, that was the whole story of Omniman in the comics. Gosh, that was long. Basically, he is almost in every scene, so this was like the story itself. I tried to make it as simple as possible. I hope you like it. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comment section.